Politics, religion, and race. Those are three topics generations of Americans were told never to discuss in public. They were powder kegs that, when lit, could blow apart the unity of the workplace, the classroom, or even a military unit. So when talk radio and later social media invited everyone to get real and unleash their strongest opinions, many Americans didn't know how to use this newfound power. Today on State of Independence, we'll talk to a first-generation American, a leader who thinks she's found a way to help American women talk about and act on big ideas without destroying friendships. Stay with us. What is it about faith that is so divisive when faith is central to how we understand ourselves, our purpose, and learn to treat others? What turns the beauty and uniqueness of racial and ethnic differences into sparks of division? What keeps politics from being a healthy debate of the best answers to the problems facing our cities, our states, and our country? And why are these topics so hard for many Americans? This week, we talked to Tammy Olivas. Born in California, lived in Mexico, and later, along with her husband and children, moved to the Midwest to Wisconsin. That's where we caught up with her to hear how her passion to improve educational options for her own children became a master class in American civics. Now she's part of the Policy Circle, a movement of women of all political persuasions who found a way to learn about and debate issues without damaging relationships. Here's Tammy. I think you'll find her pretty inspiring.
I'm from California, born in California, but raised in Mexico, so very Mexican all through and through. Wisconsin has been our home for 11 years now. I feel like I'm a hybrid, a citizen by birth, but not really by understanding the system. We come from a country where we kind of have given up hope. It's just that it's very complicated to really make a difference and change at a higher level. The way you are making political decisions might directly affect your everyday life. Unless you get involved in that, you are gonna suffer the consequences, good or bad, every day. I think it's a matter of teaching communities that you can truly influence change. It's probably more than politics, the policy. It's being able to influence policy. Being part of the Policy Circle has really opened different perspective to things. And so it has given us that opportunity to be very present in the issues that are affecting. Knowing that you have that circle backing you up gives you a sense of comfort to go through that fight that you're going to go through when you decide to run for a public position.
Sylvie Légère is the co-founder and president of the Policy Circle, the organization giving the voice to a movement of American women who've been on the outside of democracy. Welcome to State of Independence. Good to see you, Sylvie.
Thank you.
Glad to have you here. Now, here it is. You're a first-generation American. You're a French Canadian, and you're first-generation American, and yet it is you're a co-founder of this organization which helps American women to understand this. You're the daughter, as I understand, of a politician as well?
That's right. That's right. I'm a Québécoise. I come from Quebec, a town called Gatineau in the national capital area. And I grew up speaking French, and I came...
when did you learn English?
So I learned English when I was in college, when I decided to learn English. Before that, all my schooling, all my life was always in French, and actually I was kind of a desperate case in English learning. And it's finally in college, I went to a bilingual university, and that's where I decided that I wanted to work and live in the bilingual country that Canada is, and really become fully bilingual.
And so what was it like growing up being the daughter of an elected official? Your dad was the mayor of a city, as I understand it.
That's right.
What city?
So it was called Hull, and today it's called Gatineau.
Yeah. And was there pressure on you? I mean, if you were the mayor's daughter, did that put you in the spotlight? Did people look at you and say, well, you're his daughter? Did they put pressure on you?
No, I don't think there was real pressure. I wouldn't say that. It's just like you're not necessarily your own person, right? You're always, you you carry your name, and our name was rather unique in our town, Légère, and so you always have the questions like, oh, are you Michel Légère's daughter? Yeah. And my dad, though, was very involved and fully committed to civic life. So his priority and his time and everything about our family was really around his involvement in the city.
Yeah. So you became an American citizen, and you brought that. You obviously some of that passion that your dad had to change things, to make them better. Obviously, is part of you. It's part of who you are, and you brought that with you to the United States. And here it is. You're a first-generation American, and you helped create this this policy group so that American women, many of whom are not first-generation Americans, as you are and as Tammy happens to be, but to help them learn how to talk about these issues, understand, to be able to do it in a way that's not confrontational, that's not abrasive, where you don't have to get into a nasty argument or ruin a friendship.
Yeah, you know, I grew up, and I think it does come from my background, my upbringing. I grew up in Canada at a time where all of the political discussions were around the separation of Quebec from the rest of Canada, which, when you think about it's a really big deal, right? And I lived in the capital region, so it was a very hot topic. Yet I always felt that I could engage in discussions, in just a debate of ideas of what would be the implications of what is a vision for either for Quebec or even for a Canada that is fully bilingual and multicultural, that embraces the Quebec and its specificity. But those were really difficult conversations. I look back and I never felt that they were, and they were polarizing, but it was not polarizing the same personal attack, cancel culture, inability to interact, you know, so I felt when lately in the last 5 years, and I came in the States, like it's almost like as if Americans, it's not part of the culture to talk about, to engage in a conversation where you exchange ideas, where you share knowledge, where you find meaning and where life happens, to have these conversations from which that can be a springboard to engage and find real solutions.
Yeah, it's quite, I guess that must have been eye-opening to you to come here to America and see people getting all hot and bothered or staying away from conversations that they knew were going to end up in an argument. You know, we talk about politics, we talk about race, we talk about religion, you know, and yet and still you're comfortable with all this. Does it come from the fact that you just wanted to know, or you felt that everybody moves together, moves forward if you all understand each other better?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's a couple of things. I find first that American, when I first came here, it was in '94, the beginning of the internet just launched, like the Netscape just launched, and so it was really the beginning of the tech revolution that we are in, and it was an exciting time, and I couldn't believe two things. One, how people were always trying to innovate, to find solutions. How the culture was so focused on just, there's no problem, there's always a solution, and people ready to help each other, to engage in their community, to be problem solvers, right? That was very new to me, and I just loved it. I just loved American culture. At the same time, I also felt that there was not a lot of debate about tough topics around politics. People shied away from that to avoid friction. But today, you know, and I realized, well, today this is what we need to move forward and unlock where we're at.
Is that what caused you to band together with a group of other women and to create this forum, this opportunity, a safe space? I mean, do women come to your group knowing that it's a safe space where no matter what their opinion is, no matter what their viewpoint is, no matter what their political party is, that this is a place where they can actually come and dialogue and learn and have different opinions and maybe even debate without it getting nasty?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So we created, so my co-founders, I met them at a conference, and we had the same kind of feeling and idea and experience in our own communities of inviting women to engage in substantive conversation about various issues. I had experienced it in just my living room and in my home, in my town in Wilmette, and then we decided, we're onto something, and we want to create something that could be scalable and that could really be a gift. And our focus right now is women. For people to have a structure, a place to go where they can feel like they have the facts and there's a structure in place to engage in a way that there's no friction, where your political positions are not being asked, where you're just really truly discussing the impact of policy on your life.
So how do you do that? I mean, do you have like a coffee and you sit around a round table? Do you tell everybody the ground rules before you start? Do you have policy papers that are circulated to everybody in the group so that you can know what the policies are, and then you can talk about them and what you like and don't like? I mean, how do you do this?
Well, there's different layers of autonomy, right? So our focus as an organization is we recruit and develop circle leaders. So you start a circle with 2 or 3 other women who decide, we are going to create this forum, and we decide, the circle leaders decide who they are inviting. And so they can set different parameters. It might be geographic, it might be at a professional level, people from different industries, different backgrounds.
Right.
So
medicine,
they decide.
business, the arts,
Right, depending on the voices that they want to bring together. So that first level of autonomy is that the circle leaders, the people who are starting a circle, decide who to bring. So that creates the space that they will be comfortable, and creates a level of intimacy, and also it ensures that there's a connection, at least of one, between all of the participants, which I think is where trust comes, and any conversation needs to be based on one level of trust. So that's the first piece. The other piece is that we realize people, and there's groups out there that bring people together and you just discuss top of your head, and then that's where there's conflict, when you don't have information to react to.
Exactly.
So we developed, as an organization, what we call policy circle briefs. And the briefs, we choose the topics based on what's happening in the news, based on what we hear from our circle leaders and what they want to discuss. And now we have a library of about 45 multimedia briefs that people that come to a circle meeting are expected to have read. One that's selected as a topic of discussion, and they have to read it, and then they engage in a roundtable discussion, reacting to the brief.
Right. So everybody's informed. So it's not like somebody
informed.
doesn't know and can't participate in the conversation. Everybody's informed. Everybody's read the same information, and then they can react to it however they can put their take on it, right?
Right. So each of the brief come also with a discussion guide, so it's self-facilitated. Right. So there's no speakers, because I don't know if you've experienced this, but every time you bring a speaker, they kind of take over. And then also what happens is you rely on the expert to find the solution. Instead of thinking through yourself, sharing your experience, sharing what has worked, what has not worked, what you see as a priority in the brief, and then realizing that actually I can be part of the solution. There is something that I can do locally that could impact this.
This is what democracy is supposed to look like. I mean, this is the beauty of it, where people come together, they exchange ideas, they have information, so they're not just talking off the top of their head, but they have information they can react to, and then they can give their opinion on things in a thoughtful and informed way, and not necessarily lowering themselves to throwing sticks and stones and saying bad things about each other. Do you think there's a difference between the way, this is obviously a women's group, so do you see a difference between the way men and women deal with policy?
I think so. So we created this initially for women. So our target audience and market and people we had in mind, the way we designed it was really for women, because we felt that women do not and I'm not. A lot of women hesitate to engage in these types of discussions because it brings some frictions on relationships. And as a woman, you wear multiple hats professionally, in your community, with your children, with your spouse. You do not want to put at risk relationships for most women. You hesitate to put at risk relationships because we depend on each other to survive, to support base, to manage to make everything happen, right? So I think that women value a space where you can actually engage in those deeper conversations and share your lens of cares from a professional perspective, from your business perspective, from your community, and from your family, where you can present yourself in the multifaceted in your multifaceted life that you lead.
Well, certainly if men were involved, it'd take on a whole different feeling.
Well, yes and no. So the way we structure the conversation, the other piece of it, having the brief is one, having the facilitation going around the room, and then we also we encourage strongly our circles to use an hourglass, and I should have brought one, an hourglass, so a timer.
Right.
So that everyone is given 2 minutes to express their thoughts.
Oh, very
that
good.
way,
very good.
Couple of things. People don't like to cut each other off. They don't, and this came from feedback from our members, and it's actually a Native American tradition. The talking stick is a tradition that we kind of knew this idea would work. So it becomes a tool for facilitation, and then also it gives a space for even the quiet ones to express their ideas. And then when you have men and women in a circle, it becomes a critical tool to use, because otherwise I think men have a tendency sometimes to dominate the conversation or interject rapidly and just take over a little bit. So with this hourglass, then I think it's a very equitable conversation and a very effective for everyone to participate. So that's the other piece of what we call the policy circle framework.
Yeah, that's so nice. And where are you? How many of these exist currently?
Yeah, so now we have 335 circles in 40 states. And we also have some circles that were started in 4 countries in the Middle East. So we hosted, I think it was with the Bush Library, hosted women from the Middle East and welcomed them in DC. And then so Policy Circle Women in DC area came together and hosted a Policy Circle event with women from the Middle East. And the topic, the brief that we discussed, was creating career pathways. That's the brief that they picked. And this brief discusses, well, how do you create career pathways and opportunities from people who might come from vulnerable communities. It might be economically vulnerable communities. It might be communities with people with disabilities, veterans, people who are re-entering life. How do you create opportunities for them? That was the topic. So it was an incredibly rich conversation. And relationships that were made. And some of these women went back and started Circle in Tunisia, in Lebanon, in Afghanistan, and Egypt. And so that was a surprise.
Did you ever think that when you started this that it was going to be this large?
I did not. I did not. I believed, and I think this is where it goes back to maybe my upbringing and my dad's influence in my life. My dad's principle in governing or in civic life, public life, was that everybody has a voice. And every voice can bring a solution or a piece of the puzzle that help us put together a full picture and frame the problem and also frame the solutions. So my dad had a, open door policy. He had an open office, and he was always, and to this day, everywhere he goes, he is genuinely interested in what people have to say and how they see a situation. Genuinely interested, and I think it comes from that, right? This idea of creating a forum where I believe that everyone who will come will have read the brief and will have an innovative way of looking at a problem, an innovative way of finding solutions.
That's wonderful. So. We're talking, of course, to Sylvie Légère, and we'll be right back.
Learn more about Joe Watkins and the mission of this program at joewatkins.net. And tell Joe what you thought about today's program in the comment box.
We're talking to Sylvie Légère of the Policy Circle, and it's a fascinating discussion because she's telling us what she and some others created, which really sounds to me like democracy. A group of women coming together to talk about issues, everybody informed, people allowed to have different perspectives, different ideas about what they've read, and yet still discussing it in a civil way, and really helping each other to move forward, which I think is great, and not destroying relationships along the way, which I think is especially informative. Now, here it is, we're in an important election year, and there are all these big topics out there. What do you have on the horizon? I mean, there's the whole notion of defunding the police, I think you've heard of. There's the whole issue of school choice. Tell me what you have planned in terms of those discussions.
Yeah, there's a couple of things. One, we have a focus on election integrity. So we have briefs around election integrity, encouraging people to learn about what they can do as election workers to ensure that every vote is counted and our elections are fair. So that is one piece. Also, the other piece is understanding your ballot, right? So having people taking the time, and this is where forming a policy circle is great, whether it's in your business or in your community, to really understand who is on your and what is on your ballot, because there's a lot of ballot initiatives, and be prepared when you go to the polls. So that is another piece. And then in terms of the issues, so we have a series of briefs that would inform discussions around that, so that people can understand and question the candidates, engage with their candidates constructively about issues, about the issues that are at stake. So we do have a brief on immigration. We have a brief on K-12 education.
That's personal for you. I guess immigration is a personal issue for you. I mean, you know this as an immigrant yourself, and Tammy also is somebody who's an immigrant. So I guess these are personal issues. Yeah,
these are real issues to kind of understand what needs to be done to the immigration system, and then there's and to frame the immigration issue as illegal immigration, but also legal immigration. What do we want this country to be in terms of legal immigration, which has been a land of a welcoming land since its inception, right? So those are the briefs. The other around defunding the police, we are actually right now working on a brief on understanding law enforcement. So oftentimes I feel like we come up with a solution or a policy approach without perhaps taking the time to look at or fully understanding what is the goal and what is the problem that we are trying to frame, and where are the changes that could be made that can make positive change. So the brief, we title it Understanding Law Enforcement. So it gives a big picture background on how is law enforcement funded in the city. Some of the funding comes from state level, some of the funding comes at the county level, some are at the city level. So when we talk about defunding, what are we talking about? And also, what are the reforms that are currently underway and the progress that has been made so far? So the brief is under review. We have, every time we publish a brief, we invite input from various people and from our membership as well, and people in the community so that it represents fully a 360 on the issues. And our goal is to ignite civic engagement when people review those.
That's outstanding. That's outstanding.
And We also we also have briefs around taxes, around economic growth, what drives it, around free enterprise, and we're also working in the context of this election, one on socialism. We will be hearing a lot of the word, socialism, Marxism. What is it, right? So we will have a brief on that. And the brief are multimedia. They're online. They're in library. They include videos. They can be read in 30 minutes, 40 minutes. They can be discussed. So.
Thank you so much, Sylvie, for being with us today on State of Independence. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Share what you've learned on today's program by first connecting with Joe directly on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Get started at joewatkins.net.
That was Sylvie Légère, and what she's got going. This policy council is just incredible. I think it really is what democracy is all about. Let's talk with Jeff Coleman about it. He's our great producer.
Boy, I mean, just listening to her, first, very inspiring for a lot of reasons, but you think about what the frustration is every single day when we are trying to have a discussion and somebody says, I don't know if I want to engage or not. I saw what she posted. I just don't like her. I don't like him. And they step back out of the conversation. Nobody learns. Nobody has a discussion. Nobody picks up the phone. This is exactly what the country needs.
Yeah, well, I like the fact that there's a brief written so that everybody can be on the same page. You get to read a dispassionate brief that informs you about the issue, so that you don't come into it with a bias or from left field, so to speak. And then it makes the discussion, I think, more civil because everybody's informed.
It's civil and it's substantive. This isn't saying, hey, let's get together and do a beach read, and we'll see you next month. And you know, I mean, I think what a lot of people are finding out is that the entertainment conversation is just not going anywhere. People have been entertained by politics, they've been entertained by books and culture, and it's very interesting to dip in and learn about ideas, but if it's to no end. And that Tammy at the beginning, so inspiring, because here's a mom who says, I want to change the school system for my kids. Amazing.
I love it. There's substance to it. I mean, this is not just a little tea club where the women get together and just talk daintily about things. I mean, this is something of substance. It's something that certainly men could learn from. I mean, I wonder if there's a male counterpart to this, because we'd be blessed to have one. I mean, this is what it's all about. I mean, if we want to move the country forward, this is democracy in action, right?
You know, I was reading about we're in Philadelphia, and the founders that had great marriages were interesting, because not only would the founders talk about the supportive wife, you know, John Adams to Abigail Adams, Benjamin Rush, his wife. They talked about the intellect and the need for them to bring something to the discussion. I don't know that the country would have happened, it wouldn't have happened without those intellectual heavyweights in the marriage bringing something. And this is an idea that's whose time has come.
Absolutely. Thanks again for joining us on State of Independence, and thanks to our wonderful guest today, Sylvie Légère from the Policy Circle, founded by women, but also includes men, which is wonderful. A great exercise in this thing called democracy. What a blessing. And thanks, of course, to our great producer, Jeff Coleman. I hope that you'll be just as thoughtful in your dialogue and informed in your dialogue as the members of the Policy Circle are. May God bless you richly. We'll see you soon.
Joe Watkins' State of Independence is a production of Lighthouse TV, positively different. Made possible in part because of the support of viewers like you.